On November 30th, 1982, something appeared on record store shelves. Something so hypnotic, so enticing, so unstoppable. Nothing and no one could stand in its way. What came next would send shockwaves around the world and change the face of popular music forever. That something being the legend that would become Thriller.
Yes, Michael. I'm not like other guys.
Michael Jackson's single that is currently #1 on the rhythm and blues and pop single charts. Jackson is also the first singer ever to have an album and a single in first place on both charts.
Selling album in the country is Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Now, since Michael Jackson is the proud winner of 8 shiny new Grammys, you might expect the sales of his records to suddenly surge. Sorry, you see, sales have always been up.
Anything with Michael Jackson on it does continue to sell. I love you, Michael Jackson.
The album broke down every barrier imaginable, appealing to black and white, young and old, rich and poor, across the nation and beyond. Within 15 months, Thriller would become the best-selling album of all time, and the nation's top-selling record for 2 years in a row, with eventual sales of an estimated 70 million copies worldwide. Despite critics characterizing Thriller as simply a collection of hits rather than a coherent body of work, Thriller's production quality, innovative music videos, and Michael Jackson's incredible instincts as a performer set new standards for creativity. Quote, "Sequencing an album," Quincy Jones explained, "is one of the joys in being a producer because it's like making a movie." Michael Jackson's passion for the art of filmmaking drove him to not only create a musical masterpiece, but a visual one as well. For the first time exploring visions much darker and more sinister, revealing his own internal angst. Life would ultimately imitate art, as themes outlined in Thriller predicted struggles Michael would endure in the years to come, as though he knew it to be his destiny. He sings about being afflicted by relentless speculation, paranoia, and press intrusion, as well as intense feelings of isolation and longing for meaningful human connections. The unavoidable mindless zombies out for his blood, whether corporate leeches, the tabloids, or a predatory medical system, resulting in his startling physical transformation that the public bared witness to. Thriller left an indelible mark on Michael Jackson, a pinnacle he long yearned for, but was ultimately haunted by. Every album, single, or career move since would undoubtedly be compared to the once-in-a-lifetime hysteria Thriller mania ignited. An experience so intoxicating, Jackson never stopped pushing harder and farther to strive beyond its confines. A time when he believed his talents were endless, his impact expansive, and his legacy so enduring it will last forever. This is Thriller Forever, a video series chronicling every detail in the construction, release, and lasting impact of Michael Jackson's musical juggernaut. From the good, the incredible, the bad, and the downright ugly. To understand the motivations behind Thriller, we must first get to grips with the context of its recording and Michael Jackson's career thus far. At 23 years old, he was already a veteran of showbiz, having been a star since the early 1970s. He, with his brothers, achieved an incredible run of crossover hits as the Jackson 5, which was followed by Michael's massive solo success with 1979's Off the Wall. The album, the first to be produced by Quincy Jones, achieved a music industry milestone with 4 top 10 hits, earning Jackson a Grammy for Best R&B Male Vocal Performance for its lead single, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Having sold over 8 million copies by 1982, Off the Wall was the best-selling album by a black artist up until that point. Beyond his early Motown child stardom, Jackson had now proven himself as a vibrant solo artist with his disco-defying breakout. However, despite these achievements, Jackson was surprisingly disappointed by the record's outcome, both critically and commercially. After Off the Wall, Michael Jackson experienced a transitional period, a time of increased independence. Soon hiring John Branca, Michael told the entertainment lawyer that he needed to be the biggest and the wealthiest star in show business. He expressed how upset he was about his perceived underperformance of Off the Wall, feeling it deserved the Grammy Award for Record of the Year. From Michael's standpoint, he and Quincy Jones produced one hell of an album, and all he got in return was a token from the Grammy voters, who still saw him as that cute little kid with the great moves on The Ed Sullivan Show. Michael vowed it can never happen again. In general, he felt undervalued by the music industry, demonstrated in 1980 when Rolling Stone declined to run a cover story on him. Jackson responded, quote, "I've been told over and over that black people on the cover of magazines don't sell copies. Just wait. Someday those magazines are going to be begging me for an interview. Maybe I'll give them one, and maybe I won't." Therefore, Michael Jackson approached recording his next LP with this competitive determination, motivated by the bitter embarrassment he felt he suffered and his refusal to be overlooked. With laser focus, Michael was intent to study, practice, and create something so incredible it would be impossible for anyone to ignore it. In general, Michael Jackson was frustrated by albums that had one good song and the rest were like B-sides. The singer saying, quote, "Ever since I was a little boy, I would study composition, and it was Tchaikovsky that influenced me the most. If you take an album like the Nutcracker Suite, every song is a killer, every one. So I said to myself, why can't there be a pop album where every song is a killer?" With his next record, Jackson wanted to continue to push his creative capabilities. The United States was in the midst of a deep recession with the unemployment reaching a 4-decade high. Record sales had been declining since the late 1970s. Disco had faded without anything really to replace it. New Wave and MTV were only in its infancy, and the top 40 radio had all but died, as stale classic rock dominated the airwaves. As the New York Times put it, quote, "There had never been a bleaker year for pop than 1982. The music industry needed a radical shakeup, and for it to have been delivered into record stores yesterday. Therefore, on the first day of recording, producer Quincy Jones walked into Westlake Studios in Los Angeles and said, quote, "Okay guys, we're here to save the recorded music industry." To accomplish this, one of their priorities was to balance the album's various genres and forms between R&B, pop, rock, disco, funk, and ballads, producing an album that wouldn't be restricted by racially drawn classification of genre or radio play. As in the early 1980s, radio was still largely segregated, adhering to narrow programming based on racialized genres. Jackson and Jones reviewed hundreds of song demos, listening to each one to see if it had the qualities they were looking for. Jones referred to this process as, quote, "Polaroids." Each potential song was held up to see how it fit in with their pre-existing material and if it met their exacting standards. Quote, "I called Michael Smelly because when he liked a piece of music or a certain beat, instead of calling it funky, he'd call it smelly jelly. When it was really good, he'd say, 'That's some smelly jelly.'" Songs written by Michael were dictated into an audio recorder, after which he'd sing them from memory. Bruce Swedien remembering, quote, "Michael was never late for a session. If anything, he would be early. Also, I never remember recording Michael with the lyrics in front of him. He would stay up all night memorizing the song or songs we were about to record. I don't think there are a lot of artists who do that." In addition to memorizing the lyrics, Michael also preferred to record vocals in the dark, so he could, without distraction, focus on his voice, the intentions of the words, and the emotions behind them. Swedien adding, quote, "The human being is primarily a visual animal. Hearing is our second sense. People can be distracted by too much light in the studio to the extent that it can take away from the music."
I adore Michael. He's the greatest. And Michael is very, very polite, and he's a wonderful guy to work with. And he would say, "Bruce, that's perfect, but let's try one more." And this is like mix 80. And so I say, "No problem." So we did it.
Of course, it wasn't all fun and games. According to Jackson, Quincy was a perfectionist. He always asked for another take. Quincy would often get frustrated with Jackson for spending so much time rehearsing his dance moves. Additionally, creative tensions started to reveal themselves between the two. Quote, "There was a point where we thought it was all over, that we were all finished," remembers keyboard player Greg Fillinganes. Quote, "There had been so much hard work and long hours, and Quincy's saying it's not there yet, and Michael, almost distraught, is saying, what are we going to do now?" Quincy felt that there were certain elements that were missing still, and we went back to the drawing board.
He just has a great quality for excellence, for perfection, and anybody who's worked with him notices this. The way he'll make you do a thing until it's perfect.
Over and over again?
Yes.
He's difficult to work with?
No, I like to be grinded a lot. No, he's not difficult at all. He'll say, "It's beautiful, we have a take." Then he'll say, "Well, can you give us one more?"
Jackson and Jones made many different mixes of each song due to their dissatisfaction with every result. After they finished the record, the production team was surprisingly somber. No one was happy with the way the tracks had turned out, so they decided to remix every single song once again, spending an entire week on each track. Quincy Jones saying that they, quote, "did the final mixes up until 9 o'clock in the morning of the deadline. We had 3 studios going at once." After a total of 4 months and coming in on a budget at $750,000, the crew submitted the final record on November 8, 1982, just 22 days before its release. The team had whittled down a collection of 30 demos to the chosen 9 that made up the final album, with Jackson writing 4 of them himself. But after leaving the studio, were the crew confident they had achieved the goal they initially set their sights on? Quincy Jones stated that there is never any way to predict a hit record. Quote, "You can't explain something like that. You can't aim at it," he said. "It's why I used to keep a sign in the studio saying, 'Always leave space for God to walk into the room.'"
Everybody goes into a studio to make the biggest record in the world.
Sure.
And everybody's always surprised when it isn't the biggest record in the world.
Surprised when it's not.
And everything was just right. Again, if you just get out of your own way and let that force go to work, that's what happened.
Bruce Swedien harbored similar sentiments. Quote, "I think anyone who would have the balls to say that is a liar, because you don't really know until it gets out in the public and they say, wow, this is really good." The only person certain that the record would achieve incredible success was Michael himself. Jerry Hershey from Rolling Stone stating that, quote, "Michael had predicted it all when I first met him. The Media Geek Show, the staggering sales figures, the order of singles, everything in which was to come." In preparation for its release, renowned photographer Dick Zimmerman captured the album cover's final image, which featured Jackson in a slick white suit he plucked off the photographer's shoulders while shooting. The gatefold sleeve reveals a tiger cub at Jackson's leg, which, according to Zimmerman, Jackson kept away from his face, fearing it would scratch him. Album artwork, certainly in the 80s, played a key role in attracting record buyers. A visual representation of the music inside, before the prominence of music videos. For a record that covers such a diverse range of genres, its slick monochromatic styling may have signified a musical reset of sorts. A new era, detached from previous disco glitz, bubblegum, and Motown, ushering in the next chapter of Michael Jackson. The presence of the cub showcasing his playfulness, as well as signifying Michael's attraction to the exotic and his more daring side. Certainly not your typical Jackson's record, the title suggesting something unexpected. All thriller without the filler.